And I'm back in the icy cold tundra of Calgary, friends. I literally got here at the worst possible time. It's been about a couple weeks now. It was minus 20 in the middle of November. I do not remember those kind of temperatures so early on. Like, it was 10 degrees in Toronto, but it was minus 20 here. Thankfully, it has warmed up since then, and now it's a balmy, 2 degrees. So in this interim sort of period that I've been back to Calgary, it's been about 2 weeks. I'm still waiting on, my Bulgarian visa. They said it would come at the earliest at about mid-December to the latest first week of January. So there's technically not a lot of big steps that I can take until it is approved. But in today's video, I'll show you what I've been working on kind of in the last couple of weeks, and also go over a sort of checklist for you guys, for anyone who is thinking of moving abroad. These are some things that you should definitely keep in mind. Cheers. For anybody wondering, yes, I did dye my hair darker. What do you guys think? It's pretty close to my natural color, but of course I still have some highlights going on, but I think I like it. I think I'm ready for like almost brunette for the winter season. All right, guys, so let's get into it. I have my list of things that you should keep in mind before moving abroad, starting with getting your bank accounts in order. That really is number one. This is in no way financial advice, and every country might have slightly different rules when it comes to non-residency, so make sure you look into your particular case. I'm just letting you guys know what my specific situation is here in Canada, and to be honest, I assume it's probably at least somewhat similar in other countries. Basically, it's a really good idea to find out in plenty of time ahead of time before you move if your financial institutions support non-residency. So for example, here in Canada, the big banks, the RBC, TD, Scotiabank, almost for certain, I'm like 99% certain, all of them will support you in being a non-resident if you've been a client with them for quite some time. But if you don't want to have to file a Canadian tax return, there are specific kinds of accounts that you can no longer hold. So for example, in my particular case, I will be keeping my checking accounts, my credit cards, and also my TFSA. Initially, I was planning on selling it. I thought that I had to sell it before I left, because if you don't want to file any sort of Canadian tax returns, they basically make you sell any of your active trading accounts or any kind of accounts that are accruing interest that you have to report at the end of the year. So any sort of like high interest savings account, I will be getting rid of, because I don't want to have to file a Canadian tax return. But as far as the TFSA, it is possible to hold it, literally freeze it, where the stock denominations or ETF or index funds, whatever you have in there, they basically stay as is. You can't make any changes to your portfolio. You can't take anything out. You can't put anything back in. So that's under the assumption that you will come back at some point, like even for a year or something of residency. So the way I looked at it is most likely I will come back to Canada, 5, 10, 15 years from now, even if it's for a short amount of time. So since the money that I have in my TFSA isn't something that, I need, I'm totally fine with just leaving it and hopefully letting it grow. I figured I may as well just leave it as is. Point number 2 on my list is to renew or cancel your driver's license. You will certainly have to look into the specific rules of the 2 jurisdictions that you're working with, but in my particular case with Bulgaria, I'm not actually allowed to have one of their driver's licenses until I am a permanent resident. So for the time being, and I called so many freaking times to Service Canada trying to figure this out, but I am allowed to keep my Canadian driver's license for the time being, and obviously I'd have to put like an international license or get it translated in Bulgaria to be valid. I can use my Canadian driver's license, but the biggest issue is that you cannot have 2 at the same time. Like that's, I guess, illegal. So once I get my Bulgarian license, if I end up getting permanent residency there, then I will have to actually go and cancel my Canadian driver's license. But for the time being, I will be able to use my Canadian one, and probably what I'm going to do once I get my passport back from the consulate is I'm going to go and renew my Canadian driver's license so it's good for 5 years, starting from this period, so I can use it up until the time that I hopefully get permanent residency. Now, point number 3 on my list is to purchase travel medical insurance. I cannot overstate how important this is, guys, because as you know, in becoming a non-resident, I will lose my Canadian healthcare coverage, and I also don't qualify for the Bulgarian Social Security just yet until I'm a permanent resident as a non-EU person. That is not something that I qualify for. So in my particular case, I will have to get my own private, medical insurance, which is fine because then you can really find a plan that covers all of the things you need. You know exactly how much it's going to cost, and in that way, you have your peace of mind. And if you guys are looking for a recommendation of a great travel medical insurance plan, I happen to have one for you. They are the sponsor of today's video and a company that I have used myself for almost 5 years now, I think, which is Nomad Insurance by Safety Wing. I've talked about Safety Wing in many past videos, but basically they have been my main choice for coverage while I have been out of Canada. That is, super flexible, super affordable. But just recently they made a bit of a change in their plans where they now have their essential plan and they also have their complete plan. The essential is more or less what I was on before, where it just kind of like auto renews every 28 days when you're traveling. It's super budget friendly, super flexible. They have a bunch of add-ons you can put on there, perfect for anybody who's traveling for just, a couple of months or 6 months. But if you are looking for actual, comprehensive healthcare on a year-round sort of basis, I would definitely recommend their complete plan. So for example, things like routine doctor's visits, mental health support, maternity care, even like complementary therapies like, chiropractor or something, all of that is covered under this plan no matter where you are in the world. A lot of other insurance providers usually just cover you in the country you take it out in, but for people like myself who are, moving around quite a bit, let's say I do spend half the year in Bulgaria and the other half traveling abroad. This way I have complete health coverage in all of those places, which is super cool. So if you are somebody who just travels in the more short term, you only need coverage for like a couple of months, definitely check out their essential plan. But if you are a long-term sort of nomad living abroad, definitely check out their complete plan for really comprehensive health and travel coverage. I'm going to have a link in the description so you guys can check them out. Would definitely recommend Safety Wing. I have used them for over, 5 years, probably about 5 years. So if you are looking for a recommendation, they would be mine. Point number 4 is to print off all vital documents. So speaking of healthcare, I think it is a really good idea to have all of your medical records, like vaccinations, any kind of treatment plans, like make sure you have some printed off copies to be able to show to your new healthcare providers, when you're in your new country. Any sort of government documents, like having copies of, your passport front page is always a good idea. Birth certificate, any kind of name change sort of stuff, even tax returns, any of those types of things. I would recommend having paper copies so you have an actual, physical copy to show people, as well as also putting it in a sort of, online medium like a Dropbox or an iCloud or something. Like have it saved in a few different places, so in case in a really bad scenario that you lose the original document, at least you have a copy of it on your computer, and also in a physical sort of copy as well. Point number 5 on my list is to stock up on items that are not as easily accessible in your new country. Now, obviously, with me moving to Bulgaria, it's not that much of an issue. I know they're probably going to have more or less everything that we have here in Canada. It's just some specific brands that, okay, they don't have there, so I can bring them from home. But all the basics I know they will have there. But that's not the case for everywhere. So depending on where it is you're moving to, I would really recommend getting any sort of, medications, especially that you may need when you're over there. Any sort of, beauty products that just aren't made there. And third, actually, I would say that some people probably wouldn't expect is clothes and shoes, depending on your specific circumstances. And what I mean by that, to be blunt, is if you're a bigger person or a taller person and you're moving to Asia, if you're moving to like Southeast Asia or Japan or, South Korea or China, good luck finding a wide selection of clothes and shoes. Like, believe it or not, I even struggle sometimes in those countries because not that I'm super tall, but I'm about 5'7". So sometimes the shirts would like cut me really short on, my arms or my torso. Even finding any kind of long pants that, would fit the length of my legs was a little bit tricky. And I was more or less the biggest size in shoes. So depending on your particular circumstance, just make sure you have all the essentials before you leave. Point number 6 on my list is to declare non-residency to the tax and government authorities. So once again, look into the specific rules in your country, but here in Canada, I will be calling Service Canada and telling them, I no longer need my health insurance, but, I'm going to keep my driver's license. As for the CRA, which is like our tax authority here in Canada, I have to fill out an NR73 form, but that is actually done once I leave Canada because they actually ask for the official date that you left Canada. So it's not something you have to do like before you leave, and they actually give you a pretty good buffer period when you can send that in. But, sooner than later is better. Point number 7 is to cancel any sort of memberships and subscriptions. Even things like a phone plan, obviously you will have to give notice for that you no longer need it. And a lot of things like a gym, let's say, make you go in person a lot of times, I think, to sign some forms that, you want to cancel your membership. They need notice. So just make sure you get ahead of that in plenty of time. Make a list of all the different memberships and subscriptions that you have, and make sure you give them notice when they need notice. Sign whatever paperwork you need to sign, so you're not paying for some year-long membership that you won't get any sort of use out of. Point number 8 on my list is probably one that a lot of people don't think about. I actually didn't think about it until just a couple of months ago, where I was like, oh yeah, like I gotta make sure I get on that before I leave, which is changing your 2-factor authentication, for all of your important accounts to a non phone number security option. I assume most of you know what I'm talking about, where like if you're trying to log into your banking, especially if it's, from a new country, it might give you a prompt that, they're going to send a text to your phone number and then you input that in there. What are you going to do when you don't have access to that phone number anymore, right? Thankfully, a lot of platforms have other options that you can use, like you can have an authenticator app that you can access from your phone. Some let you use your email. So just make sure you look into that before you leave the country, because the last thing you want is to be abroad, not have access to your old phone number, and not be able to get into some really important accounts. So for the most important ones, make sure you look into your, security settings and what it's currently on. Point number 9 on my list is preparing everything that you will need for arrival at your new destination. Now, I'm not just talking about packing for moving abroad. I'm more talking about booking the plane ticket, having some kind of accommodation all ready to go for when you get there, like whether it is your long-term place that you're going to live or some short-term sort of stay. How will you get from the airport to the destination? Will you buy a SIM card upon arrival, or are you going to use an eSIM in the interim? Also having things like local currency, or at the very least having some USD that you can exchange in the rare scenario that, let's say, your bank cards don't work. Like, it is unlikely, but just in case they don't, always make sure you have some cash on you. Just all of these things are good to think about, before you leave, so that you don't have any stress when you first arrive in your new destination. And last, but certainly not least, point number 10 is to downsize. And I actually just had this thought that maybe this point should have been its own separate thing, but I just assumed that people would know this. But point number 10 or point number 11, you guys should know that obviously you have to get rid of your accommodation here in Canada or wherever you're leaving, right? Obviously you'd get rid of a rental, because why would you pay for that when you are actually moving abroad? But if you own your own property, yes, you could maybe keep it in some certain circumstances, but it's going to make it a heck of a lot harder to be, fully away from the tax system of the place that you're leaving if you still have a home. Especially if you're getting any sort of rental income. Like if you're doing that, you are tied to the tax system of the country that you are in. So to have a clean break, and not pay taxes in the country that you are leaving, you will have to get rid of all of the property and, your car, any of that kind of stuff in the country that you're leaving. So I guess that should have been its own separate point. But what I mainly wanted to talk about here in this point is just downsizing all of your stuff. Things like furniture, clothes, any kind of, home appliances kind of stuff. Like, do you really want to lug all of that to your new country? Nowadays, the shipping costs are just so expensive to send that kind of stuff. It would honestly be probably less expensive to just buy that kind of stuff when you're already there. But of course, I understand certain things make sense to bring with you, especially if they're not really big or don't weigh a lot or have sentimental value. All of those things, obviously, you can bring with you. But that's currently what I'm doing, and what I'll actually show you guys in just a minute is I've really been trying to downsize everything that I currently have by selling it on Marketplace, giving it away to different charities. Some stuff that's just not, in good condition anymore, I'm just throwing away, and really trying to limit myself with how much stuff I'm actually going to be taking with me to Bulgaria. So this is what we are working with, guys. This is more or less everything that I am planning to take with me to Bulgaria. Actually, that is a lie. I just realized that no, there is going to be one other box, and it is going to have this gorgeous artwork. This is actually handmade in Nepal, that I really want to bring with me. And because I got it like custom framed, you know, it's kind of hard to roll it up and do all that. So I'm going to ship it as is. And plus I also have this piece that I got in Ukraine, just, you know, absolutely stunning handmade art. So those two pieces I will have to find a special kind of box for, and it's just a little, you know, tricky because this is glass. But as far as everything else, this is kind of what I'm working with, where these two boxes I'm going to ship by Meast, I think, is my best option for shipping large amounts of stuff to Bulgaria. Like, any locals, please let me know of any other companies that you might recommend, but Meast, from my research, was the best sort of option. What I have in here is a mix of either summer clothes that, you know, I'm not going to need for the next 3 to 4 months. So since I have some good stuff that doesn't weigh a lot, I may as well bring it with me. And then the other stuff is all more sentimental value, like some stuff from my childhood or like special souvenirs that I've bought in other countries. Like that kind of stuff I will ship because I don't need it right away. Whereas these suitcases and, you know, bag that I'm bringing with me actually on the plane, this guy, my carry-on, will obviously have all my really important documents, my electronics, like all the stuff that I cannot afford to lose. I will obviously have with me on the plane. And then for my two checked bags, this will have more of my winter clothes plus any kind of stuff that I will need for my new apartment. But that's everything. Like, that's all I'm hoping to take with me, and I feel like that's a fairly reasonable amount for moving across the world. Another really important tip for you guys is these babies right here, which is, you know, Apple AirTags. I'm sure there's other options on the market that maybe are less expensive, but, you know, I have Apple, so I got a 4-pack of the Apple AirTags, and I already had one from before, so it actually works out great that I'm gonna put, you know, one AirTag in every single suitcase or box of things that I am shipping, so I know exactly where they are in the unlikely case that something gets lost. But that is today's video, friends. I hope you found it helpful, and once again, a big thank you to Safety Wing for sponsoring today's video. They really are a great option for travel medical insurance, so I'm gonna have a link in the description so you guys can check them out. And yeah, I will keep you updated with how things go. Hopefully I hear something in the next couple of weeks. That would be magical, but stay tuned, you know, for more moving abroad sort of content. And if you guys have any experience with moving your life to a new country, I would love to hear, you know, your experience and any sort of things that you recommend. But as always, I am sending you so much love. I hope you are having a fantastic day and keep being your own kind of beautiful. Bye, guys.